back in March time, we did a seminar on autoimmune disorders. So what I want to do today is to briefly summarise what we talked about in March, but then go on to introduce some new material that we've discovered since then. So the story so far on autoimmunity, there were for me, there were sort of 4 salient points that came out of the seminar in terms of practical testing. Initially, we looked at the Th1 and Th2 status of the patient. And that stage, we were talking about possibly Th1 being low and Th2 being high, or vice versa, and having Th1 high and Th2 low. But what we found in practice really is that the majority of cases are Th1 low and Th2 high. We did a lot of testing on the immunoglobulin markers for reactions to antibody reactions to food, so the IgE, IgG, IgM, and we found that autoimmune patients do have these antibodies to certain foods. The thing is, though, you need to get the patient compliance to that. I've been testing a lot of my patients with these now because it's a really quick way to find out if they've got food issues. I had one patient who came in with a long list of symptoms. He'd had these symptoms for the last 20 years, and he was prepared to do absolutely anything to get rid of these symptoms. So I thought, well, great, really positive approach. That's wonderful. So I tested these, and it turned out he had an IgE to eggs and an IgM to wheat. So I suggested he may want to give up eggs and wheat from his diet for a while to help his symptoms. Oh, I can't do that. Every morning for the last 20 years, I've had egg and toast. He was prepared to do anything but not give up his boiled egg and soldiers. So there you go. Also, vitamin A and vitamin D deficiency we found was very prevalent in autoimmune conditions. And there's a good article in the Nature Reviews Immunology journal entitled Vitamin Effects on the Immune System, Vitamins A and D Take Center Stage. So, it's a really dramatic title, and it's really very pertinent to the immune system. So in that article, they talked about the vitamins A and D having a crucial effect on the immune system in modulating the immune processes, in particular lymphocyte activation, T helper cell differentiation, which is really what we're looking at in autoimmunity, and the production of antibodies, regulating the immune responses. Now that's a big thing in autoimmunity because there's not enough regulation in the immune system. That's why you get the autoimmune reaction. And they talk specifically about modulating tissue-specific immune responses, which is exactly what autoimmunity is. So they concluded by saying that vitamins A and D were really crucial in preventing and treating inflammation and autoimmunity. So it's good to test patients for those deficiencies. So autoimmunity, well, we know this is when the body attacks itself. Now, years ago, when I first heard about autoimmunity, I thought, well, that is crazy. What would make a body attack itself? But hopefully now we've got a few of the answers as to why this happens. So just in summary, autoimmunity has 3 sort of characteristics to it. You get damage and destruction of tissues, and this leads to altered organ growth and altered organ function. So it's the presence of these self-reactive immune response cells called autoantibodies or self-reactive T cells, which causes the damage in the body. And this can be organ-specific, for example, like thyroid with Hashimoto's, or it can be a particular type of tissue, like Goodpasture's disease, which affects the basement membrane in the lung and the kidney. So in the normal state of affairs in the immune system, the adaptive immune system, these self-reactive cells are produced, but the normal immune system will suppress these cells. They're normally killed off before they become active, and they're placed into a state of anenergy or no energy, and they're removed by these regulatory cells in the immune system. But it's when these mechanisms fail, as in autoimmunity, that this leads to a sort of reservoir of self-reactive cells that then become active and attack our own tissue. Now, the prevention of these self-reactive cells takes place in the thymus, as the T cell is developing into a mature immune cell. So the thymus is obviously something that we'd look at with the infraspinatus, possibly in autoimmune cases. So this diagram, this is just a diagram to show how the normal immune response functions and how the autoimmune disease functions. So if we look at in the normal immune response, we've got antigens invading the body and antibodies forming to deal with those antigens. So here you see the antibodies removing those antigens from the body, and then the antibodies remain in a sort of docile state to protect the body in case there's an attack again. But in the autoimmune state, the immune system forms antibodies against its own tissues to self-antigens. So here you see the self-antigens here. These antibodies then attack the self-antigens, but really it's a sort of continual, perpetual cycle because the self-antigens are always there, so the antibodies are always attacking the self-antigens in the tissue. So you get constant inflammation and tissue damage. So in both autoimmune and inflammatory diseases, the condition arises through these aberrant reactions of the human adaptive and the innate immune system. I think in the seminar in March we were concentrating more on the adaptive immune system, but since then we've come to realize that there's a whole interplay between the innate immune system and the adaptive, and you really need to look at both in autoimmune cases. So here's a typical situation that we find. We find Th1 to be low and Th2 to be in excess. So with Th1 deficiency, this gives you don't get enough natural killer cells, so you're very prone to infections and also tumours. You need natural killer cells to kill off the tumours. And conversely, Th2 in excess gives you high antibody production, leading to allergies and asthma as well. So all chronic diseases have three things in common, including autoimmunity disease. This is oxidative stress, so we need to look at oxidative stress, we need to look at inflammation, and then they all have an impact on the immune system. So one of the causes of autoimmunity that's documented sort of conventionally is molecular mimicry, which is where the body identifies a sequence in a protein string, say in a virus, and it recognizes that same sequence in self-tissue. So it's sort of got confused as to, whether it's just attacking the virus or the tissue. So in a way, it describes a situation in which a foreign antigen, like a virus, can initiate an immune response in which a T or B cell component cross-recognizes self. So this cross-reactive immune response is responsible for the autoimmune destruction. It's a similarity between the molecules found on some viruses, for example, and on specific body cells or tissues. And this stimulates the immune system to set up a self-reactive response where it attacks the healthy body tissue. So the immune system acts in this way because the two molecules, the disease-causing organism and the body cell or tissue, share a sequence in the protein molecule which is similar. So we mustn't forget the emotional side in autoimmunity as well, because we want to treat people holistically. So Sondra Barrett, PhD, wrote a book, The Secret of Your Cells, and in there she writes a very good chapter on comparing what's happening biochemically in the body with what's happening emotionally in cases of autoimmunity. So she talks about the basic job of our immune system is to recognize self and other while collaborating with the brain, with the gut, with thoughts, with beliefs, and with hormones. So that's really a good holistic approach to autoimmunity. So she talks about in autoimmunity, the recognition of self is compromised. Our own cells are no longer identified as ours. They've become the enemy to be attacked. So in addition to this mistaken identity, also this response fails to be suppressed, as we talked about earlier. So what kind of emotional reflection, should we be thinking about in autoimmune cases? Well, this is from Sondra Barrett. When have I lost the ability to discriminate between people, places or behaviours that are well matched to me and those that are not? So really it's a crisis of sort of self-identity, or I think about it sometimes as sort of self-sabotage in a way. So what kind of issues should we be thinking about with these patients? Well, things like they've emotionally lost their self-identity. They can't differentiate between who they've become and other people. They've become like other people. They're influenced by others, taken on the behaviour of others, so really not being true to themselves. So that might be rather a lot to lay on your patient when they come into your treatment room for the first time. So it's something just to bear in mind if you treat people emotionally and how you can use our techniques along those lines, because everybody's situation is slightly different. But as you know, the quick and easy way to treat the emotional side is to use one of our meridian perfumes. There's a perfume for each meridian. And what we've done, we've given them very sort of uplifting, affirming type names, which is sort of pointing the patient in the direction they need to be thinking. Like this morning we talked about circulation sex with the courage and affirmation as being the sort of negative side of the meridian, but you want to move towards empowerment, so we've called the perfume for circulation sex empowerment. So these are combinations of organic, plant-based aromatherapy oils blended into wonderful perfumes. So we talked about these autoimmune diseases on the seminar in March. They cover lots of different areas of the body: thyroid, adrenals, a lot of ones in the gut, skin and joints. But I think there's lots of autoimmune diseases that seem to be, whether they're being invented or just brought to people's attention. But a lot of people come into my treatment room and say they've got an autoimmune disease called something which I don't really know about. But it's the same procedure, whatever autoimmune disease the patient's got. So from those different descriptions of the autoimmune diseases, I picked out common elements which were running through a lot of those different diseases. So a lot of them are said to be hereditary. So for us that means genetics, doesn't it? All the stuff we do with genetics, all the wavelength acetates we've been using to pinpoint the chromosomes and things. So all that work would be helpful for autoimmunity. A lot of them were said to be caused by environmental factors. Well, that's what we do all the time, isn't it? Toxic metals, chemicals, radiation, foods. Also, viral infection was mentioned in a lot of these autoimmune diseases, so we can look at that as well, which is why we've brought in a bit more about the innate immune system. A lot of them were said to be caused by psychological stress, or at least the flare-ups that happen in autoimmunity are normally in times of emotional stress for people. I know I had a lady with psoriasis, and we could just sort of get it under control, and then something would happen in her life and the whole psoriasis just flares up again. So it's very emotionally based. Mutations in the HLA genes, they're the ones that help us to identify self-tissue. So again, gene mutations which we can look at. We talked about molecular mimicry. Also, failure in clearing out cellular debris from the body can be an issue, because the immune system then recognises this debris and then starts to attack tissue with a similar structure. So damaged cell structures targeted for apoptosis are mistakenly exposed to the immune system and set off this autoimmunity. Hormonal factors, that's been reported as being involved in certain diseases. These are generally female hormones, and interestingly it's been documented that more women than men do get autoimmune diseases. So it could be hormonally based, but for me as well it could be emotionally based, talking about the lack of self-identity and that kind of idea. That can be an issue for some women at certain times in their lives. And again, vitamin D and vitamin A deficiency. So we challenged with the Th1 and Th2 markers, and what we generally find, as I mentioned earlier, is that Th2 weakens as being high and Th1 strengthens because it's low. So that's that same diagram showing that particular imbalance. So have a quick look at the immune system, just sort of briefly summarise the immune system. So when there's a lowered immune response, we need to increase the immune system activity, which is, say, in the innate immune system, when you've got an infection, we need to raise that part of the immune system up, regulate that part. But when we've got overactivity, as in autoimmunity, we need to decrease that. So it's a bit of a balancing act, really, with the immune system. It's a balancing act, really, between the two parts, the innate and the adaptive. So we need to work out which one we need to elevate and which one we need to suppress. And generally, we need to elevate the innate immune system and suppress the overactivity in the adaptive. There we go. So that's saying we need to really focus on both parts of the immune system. So we've got the immune system, the innate one. This is the non-specific, inborn part of the immune system. And this deals with this causes the cascade of the reactive oxygen species to fight microbes. And then we've got the adaptive, which is the acquired immune system. And this is the T helper cells, we've just noted here, T1 and T2. And this is for specific conditions. So the innate immune system, its initial response is to eliminate microbes and infections immediately. So it immediately gets to work, all within a few hours. It's a non-specific defense against pathogens, and it activates these reactive oxygen species. There's no long-lasting or protective benefit for the host. That's what the adaptive immune system does. So really the main point about the innate immune system is it triggers inflammation, which is really what you want when you've got a microbe. You want to get this inflammatory cascade started, but you want to kill the microbe, and then you want the inflammation to go down, to be suppressed. And that's what isn't happening in a lot of cases of autoimmunity. So here's the reactive oxygen species chart. You've probably seen this before, so quickly run through it. We produce these reactive oxygen species as a respiratory burst when the immune system needs to get going, although we also produce them under normal mitochondrial function. Also for detoxification, phase 1 detoxification, and in cases of hypoxia. So really it's a good area to get to grips with for your patient, because it's obviously instigated under a lot of different conditions. So we do have a new test vial. A new test kit. And in your brochure, you should have the layout of the new test kit. And this is really what you need to test the immune system, basically. We just recently put it together, and we found it to be really useful. So in here, we've got these reactive oxygen species markers. Where are they? Yes, down here, starting with the superoxide. So after the first respiratory burst, we get superoxide. This is then converted to hydrogen peroxide, which can then be sidelined by myeloperoxidase, the enzyme, to produce hypochlorite, hypobromite, or hypoiodite, which is used to kill gram-positive bacteria and viruses. We can find the situation where we've got a lot of hydroxyl radical and peroxynitrite, which are things that you really don't want to have in excess. So that could be causing, if they're high, that could be causing inflammation. And then if we look to the other side, starting with the arginine, this is the reactive nitrogen species. The arginine converts to nitric oxide via the enzyme inducible nitric oxide synthase. And the nitric oxide is used to kill gram-negative bacteria, viruses, and fungi. So really you want to test these test vials on your patient to see where their problem is. Are they not producing enough nitric oxide? So really find, if they've got an infection, find which one strengthens, and then they're deficient in that particular reactive oxygen species. So then you need to look at what you want to elevate that. So they're the markers, but here we've described how these markers are made, but in the actual test kit, it's just called superoxide, and the hydroxyl radical is just called the hydroxyl radical. So we've made it nice and easy for you. And this is obviously going to be useful in the next few months with all the bugs and things that are already starting, to test, where your patient's immune system is lacking and where you need to boost it. So to get the respiratory burst moving, to produce superoxide, we can use the heating spices, so ginger would be a good one for that. To convert the superoxide to hydrogen peroxide, look at copper or zinc. Silver, so colloidal silver or ionic silver, will block the hydrogen peroxide going down into the catalase section, and it stimulates the myeloperoxidase. Iodine is a good thing to look at for infections. On the nitrogen reactive oxygen species side, to stimulate nitric oxide, there's arginine on the chart. But I think you need to be careful about giving arginine, because if you give arginine, then people who are susceptible to the herpes simplex virus, this can stimulate an outbreak of that. So what we use in our nitric oxide formula is citrulline instead. So nitric oxide formula contains all the factors, all the ingredients you need to make nitric oxide. So if a patient is short in nitric oxide, that's a good one to go for. People also use that prior to doing sporting activity, because it's dilation, so it gets the blood flowing. Also good for erectile dysfunction as well, so good product. Also to stimulate nitric oxide via the inducible nitric oxide synthase enzyme, look at vitamin C and zinc, different types of zinc. And also always remember selenium, because selenium inhibits viral replication. So we've got a good product, Immune Y600, which contains selenium, vitamin C and zinc, so that's a good one to look at for viruses. So what else would we need for the innate immune system? Well, vitamin D would be a good one to look at. And then we've got the herbal tinctures, astragalus, golden seal, olive leaf, echinacea. A great one that we found for viruses is black walnut tincture. And this seems to do everything, this black walnut tincture. It's a kind of wonder product. So it's good for viruses. It balances the thyroid, it balances the estrogens, it works on parasites. So it's a really good product to get people onto. So the adaptive immune system, this is the T helper cells making antibodies. So it takes 5 to 7 days after encountering a new antigen for the adaptive immune system to reach full activity. So this would be why a cold will last probably about 4 or 5 days, or longer, possibly a week, because of the adaptive immune system getting up and running. So what happens, the T cells and the B cells in the adaptive immune system, T lymphocytes mature in the thymus. It produces the T helper cells. These are the pro-inflammatory cells. And it also produces the T regulatory cells, which used to be called T suppressor. So you do need a balance of these T helper and the T regulatory. B lymphocytes, they mature in the bone marrow, and these make antibodies taking place in the spleen. So I think we saw Kevin with a spleen issue, so look at him in terms of autoimmunity later, Kevin. So these helper T cells are a type of T lymphocyte white blood cell, and they stimulate the B lymphocytes and other types of T lymphocytes to activate an immune response to antigens. The helper T cells stimulate the growth of the natural killer lymphocytes, and the helper T cells counterbalance the function of the suppressor T cells. That's really important aspect in autoimmunity. You've got to upregulate the Tregs as well, T regulatory cells. So we talked about it being in equal balance. That's the optimal situation. If you get out of balance, then that's when you get illness. So a shift to a dominance in one pathway over another has been linked with tissue-specific autoimmunity and hyperinflammatory conditions. So what would you use to stimulate Th1 cells? Well, we've got zinc, omega-3, several different types of probiotics, so do test the different probiotic test vials. We've got the same herbs, astragalus, echinacea. Reishi mushroom is good for stimulating Th1 cells, so our smart vitamin C product contains reishi mushroom and shiitake mushroom. So that's a good one to test as well. And then don't forget vitamin D. We've talked about that. So to inhibit Th2 cells, you could look at the spices, so turmeric or smart turmeric, star anise, ginger, cinnamon, again, different types of probiotics. Black cumin seed oil is a good one there. So how do we modulate Th1 and Th2? Well, look at compounds like the probiotics, vitamin A and vitamin E. Don't forget we do the fat-soluble combination, so we do A, D, E together in a bottle, which I think is a bit like the old-fashioned cod liver oil. DEK and AEK, if people need more than one. So to support T-regulatory cells, look at vitamin D, and look at the essential fatty acids, EPA and DHA. So we do DHA capsules, we do obviously omega-3. We've now got a wonderful blend of omega-3, 6 and 9 capsules, which might be good here. We do organic flaxseed oil in capsules now, and also the sea buckthorn that Chris mentioned earlier. You should have all those test vials in your pack, actually. So that's where we got to back in March. And I wonder whether we could just test those things on perhaps Kevin or, yeah.
So use lung and spleen.
Yeah, there he is.
So
we'll just get him set up with where he was before. So he was emotionally lung, and then the sort of biochemical, physical one was the spleen. So lung and spleen.
yeah.
Okay.
So what we've got is you've got the spleen on there and the lung on the emotional front.
No. So post-virus. Does he strengthen to post-virus? Yes. Great. So now we need to look at the particular viruses which are in the immune kit. So which virus is causing his post-viral state? So do this from adenovirus. That's the first one, yeah? You can do it from strength or weakness?
Doesn't matter. They're homeopathic.
So you can use these viruses either from strength or weakness. So we're going to do it from weakness because he's got his spleen meridian on there. So let's start at the top, the adenovirus. And he's strengthening to the adenovirus.
So I'll just demonstrate that he'll also weaken to it. Because they're homeopathic. Oh, oops. Okay, because they're 30x homeopathic, they can work either way.
Okay, good. So now we need to find, what we need to do now is find the coenzyme which negates this particular virus. If you remember on the charts that we used, the SNP charts, which you've got a copy in your brochure, you can either use the nucleotide bases to find which SNP he needs, or you can try the one which has the adenovirus alongside it. Is the one with the adenovirus?
On the right.
Yeah, sure.
We should have had, I'm really sorry about this. So the adenovirus is H4 folate. So this could be the SNP that is causing Kevin's autoimmunity position. So let's find the coenzyme. We're supposed to be finding the coenzyme, the test vials. H4 folate. So H4 folate is there. Yeah. My hands are full. Can you take that one out? Did that strengthen?
Yep.
Did. Good. So that's what his underlying problem is. He needs this coenzyme. So does it strengthen his latissimus dorsi?
So we'll take everything off.
Yeah.
Pull in. Yes.
Yep. Does it strengthen his Th17 weakness?
Have we got?
Th17, is that this?
No, that's the adenovirus. So you've got the Th17.
Th17. So there's a weakness to TH17 and H4 folate. Yeah, so that strengthens it. So let's get a pack to see what dose he needs. H4 folate, Maggie? H4 folate. It's going to be this colour, the orange colour.
I don't know if we've got any. I think somebody just had one.
Oh yeah, here's one. Okay. So against TH17 we can dose it.
Just hold that, Karen.
Oops.
3.
So 3. So his dose is 3. So that does his TH17, it negates the virus and it did the muscle as well, his main muscle. So what we found for Kevin really, he needed vitamin A and he needs H4 folate. That will negate his autoimmune status, his position. Okay?
Yep.
Yeah. We did check vitamin A the first time, the first testing that we did.
Do you want to come
Yeah.
back to vitamin A and just show them that?
Yeah, we can get the vitamin A. Vitamin A. Should I get one to dose as well? Might as well. Vitamin A, smart vitamin A.
So if we use the... Have you turned me on? Yeah. The vitamin A we're doing against the TH17, and the vitamin A we can
It's
do
gonna be a
against
bottle, Maggie, sorry.
the muscle.
The oil, yeah.
Okay.
The little ones.
The silvers.
She's just going to do a dose. Just in passing there, we have got a few fat-soluble vitamin combinations. What we found with the fat solubles is that the E is a pretty consistent one with all of them because they work as a family. So we've got A, E and D, and A, E and K, and D, E and K. Okay, those are the sort of combinations, possible combinations that you can get. And there's a few that have gone out of date, so help yourself as test substance. Don't give them to patients because they're out of date, but they will last for years. But help yourself. There's a box at the back there somewhere. Have you got the box out the back there? Yeah, help yourself to them. Okay, so we'll do the dose for Kevin here of the vitamin A. So obviously I take the vitamin A off. If you hold that, we've got those little dishes somewhere.
Oh.
They're in the white plastic box.
Can't go hunting then.
So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. One, 2, 3, 4, 5. So it's 10 altogether. You're getting close. There was a little tickle there. Let's go to 12. Yeah.
What was that?
12.
12. So 12 drops of vitamin A. So
Out of interest, how many thousand units does that work out to?
Okay. So you take that one?
Yep.
So the main thing is to double check the dose there is just hold that on, hold it with that hand, is to make sure the muscle goes strong. Yeah. Okay. So that's TH17. Okay.
yeah, wonderful. So that's autoimmunity. Thank you. Thanks, Kevin.
We've got another patient now.
Oh, we're doing them?
Yeah.
Yeah. Shall we do you? I think I've got meridians
You've got the
here.
details up there.
Yeah. So Shui, isn't it? Shui. Shui was emotional meridian, circulation, sex, and the biochemical one, kidney. Do you want to lie down there? So H4 folate.
So what did she?
She was
circulation,
circulation, sex, and kidney.
Oh, well, those are out here still.
Yeah.
Okay.
H4 folate.
So just going to restore where we were.
So just popping
Just
these back
lift
so
up.
we know where they are.
That's it.
17.
Cool. Perfect.
Okay, so we start at the beginning. So we haven't checked her autoimmune status, have we? So shall we see if she's high, low in Th1 and high in Th2? So Th1. And she should strengthen to this if she's low in Th1. Which she does. So is she high in Th2? So from a position of strength, put Th2 on. And she does, so she's there. And then we need to check Th17 as well. Th17. Is she weak to Th17? Yeah, good. So we'll check whether she's got a genetic involvement there. So if we just go back, is there a genetic? So we test in the clear from strength, we test the STAT3 test vial. Because if this is overexpressed, it will cause high Th17. So STAT3. No. And we need to see if she strengthens to FOXP3, which is the other gene involved. FOXP3 is FOXP3. There we go. So she strengthened to that. So no genetic involvement there. Has she got issues in the gut causing inflammation? So we can go straight to that dysbiosis test vial. Dysbiosis test vial, which is here. Does she weaken to dysbiosis? Yes, she does, yeah. So we've got issues going on in the gut. So shall we investigate her gut position,
yes.
the enzymes and things?
Was it ulcerative colitis?
Yeah.
Yes, ulcerative
Oh, well, that
colitis.
figures, doesn't it? She's got ulcerative colitis, so gut problems. So you go to the gut kit. Gut kit. All right, so gut kit, here we go. So let's just check her digestive enzymes. Does she have sufficient hydrochloric acid? Yeah, we can check pepsin as well, so that's okay. She's going to strengthen to these if they're an issue. So, so reaction to pepsin, no, that's okay. So is she low in bile salts? Just check the gallbladder function. She's fine with that. I'll go down to the pancreatic enzymes. So does she have sufficient amylase? Amylase. She's okay with that. Does she have sufficient lipase? Yep. Does she have sufficient protease? Yep, so she's all fine. All her digestive enzymes are fine. So let's see if she has, let's check the parasite and fungus situation. So back to the pain diagnostic kit. So let's check for fungus. Fungus is okay. Let's check, we'll just run through the 5 parasite groups. That's protozoa, that one. And sporozoa. Nematode. trematode, and cestode. And let's check if she's got leaky gut. So we go to the LPS test file, which is in the new immune kit. LPS, which is there. So does she weaken to LPS? Yes, she does. So we've got a leaky gut situation here. So we can check things like zinc, folate, glutamine, and probiotics for helping the gut. So we do the probiotic composite test file first. Composite test file. So let's see if she strengthens to probiotic. This is the composite probiotic. Yeah, so we've got a probiotic there. Should we check the individual ones now? Well, let's check the, so we've got 21 different probiotics and we've got 2 combinations. So I tend to start with the 2 combinations first. So we're looking at the gut kit. So let's try Smart probiotic. And the other one is the Super 12 probiotic. No, so she's going to want her own individual collection. So we're going to go through the probiotics. So L-lactis, L-bulgaricus, L-casei, L-reuteri, L-acidophilus, L. brevis, Streptococcus thermophilus, L. salivarius, Saccharomyces boulardii, L. pantosus, L. gazeri, L. rhamnosus, B. longum, B. bifidus, L. paracasei, B. breve, B. lactis. Got about 4 to go now. B. lactis. Or B. lactis, good. We'll just check all of them because sometimes people need a combination. So B. animalis lactis, B. subtilis, and B. infantis. No, so just the one, just L-lactis, is it?
Mm-hmm.
L-lactis. We probably haven't bought all the individual probiotics, have we, guys? Oh, yes, we've got that one. Thank you.
It's the right type of trap, wasn't it?
So it's generally 2 capsules. Don't always test, but we'll see if she strengthens to 2.
You got the
So we go back to the kidney meridian weakness.
just hold on.
So 2 capsules. So these probiotics are now in the DR cap, so you can take them any time now if you take a capsule. You don't have to wait till last thing at night because they don't open until they get to the gut due to the pH. So You can take them any time, but I always suggest breakfast time for my patients because that seems to be when they remember. So does it strengthen her upper trap? Was it upper trap?
So let me just, I'll just take it off first of all, just to make sure that it was the right one, if I remember. Just push. Just let me turn it. That's it. Push together.
Yep, very strong. That's good.
Amazing. Fantastic.
Good. So I think it's probably always worth testing the SNPs as well. I'll put that at the end of the test procedure. So we've got these in the immune test kit. So it's probably best to do it back against the meridians because then you know you're talking to her unconscious mind. So if we put the acetates back on and we use the nucleotide bases from weakness. So we're looking to find which one's strength. This is probably a different way around to what we used to do it, but you can do it both ways. So if I show you how to do it from weakness. So we're looking for one which strengthens now. So that's adenine. Cytosine. Guanine. Thymine. And uracil. So she strengthens to uracil, so then you go through the 4 remaining ones to see which ones she weakens to. So which one's that, Chris?
Adenine.
Adenine.
That should be cytosine.
Cytosine. So which one is she weakening to? No, so it must be the last one.
Thymine.
Thymine. So that was U into T. But on the chart,
It's round the other way.
you look at the second column, which says, is the second column, or have you changed it around? From first one strength. It's the second column, because the first, if you look at the top of the column, S into W, the first one strengthens, the first test file we use strengthens, and the second one weakens. So you use that column, and it was U into T. U into, which one's that? Oh, CoQ10. Okay, so let's see how she does with CoQ10. 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 Here we go, CoQ10 capsule. So test that against the meridian weakness. Yeah, take those off, we don't need those anymore. And that strengthens, so she needs CoQ10 as well. So does the CoQ10 do her muscle, upper trapezius muscle?
So here, that's it.
Yeah, perfect. So we need CoQ10 for her. Have we got any CoQ10? We'll do it in the 100 ones to measure it. So we do CoQ10 in 30 milligrams, 60 milligrams, and 120. So probably for measuring purposes, it's best to use the lowest one. So it seems to the patient that you're putting on loads of capsules, but really they're quite a low strength.
Just hold on that.
So against the, can we do it against the kidney meridian? Oh no, is she kidney?
This is, it doesn't matter which way around you got them. They're the same. It's the same effect.
CX is on the head.
Yeah.
Kidney.
But it doesn't matter where you have them, as long as you have the two.
Okay. So this is 30 milligrams of CoQ10, so you probably need a few of these.
These are now in DR cap as well.
Oh yes, these are DR cap as well, so you can take these any time of day. Suits.
Otherwise it used to be just last thing at night.
Yeah.
That's it.
So how many has she got?
5.
But, well,
No,
it's
it's 5
because
threes
they're
are
low. It's
15.
because they're a low dose.
Oh, right, okay.
So if you take
5 threes are 15
take 120.
and 30.
It's,
Not
no, you
120
won't be taking
capsules.
5. This is why doing it in a small dose capsule is a bit worrying for the patient. No, they're very small, so that's why we've used those, so we get the measurement. So she needs, what, 5 threes, 150.
150.
So you need 120 and 130. Yep,
Wow.
just one of those. Yep,
That's nothing.
that's fine.
It's
That's
nothing.
fine dose.
So how many, what do I take at breakfast?
The probiotic you can do at breakfast, and you can do these at breakfast as well, because they're in DL caps.
So one of those and one of those.
Yeah, and that gives you your dose. Yeah, which is fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Okay, and then I think we should just check the vitamin A and D, because we saw how important that was for autoimmunity. So we'll check whether she needs A or D. So you can go back to the meridian, and we've got smart vitamin A. Is this out, Chris? Yeah, smart vitamin A. Does she strengthen to smart vitamin A? No. Does she strengthen to D3? What's that? Was that D3 there? No.
She took one this morning, so I don't know if
It doesn't matter, you're still weak.
yeah,
It's whatever you took, if it worked, it would have worked. You wouldn't have had all the problems.
D3. I need to find the D3. Is it there, Chris?
No, we haven't used it. Sorry.
We tested somebody with it, didn't we? Okay,
Okay.
so D3. Where's the D3? That's vitamin A. What cholecalciferol? That was there. Wasn't it? Oh, smart D3. Here we go. Smart D3. Oh, no, she doesn't. So she's okay without vitamin A and D, but she needs the probiotic and the coenzyme, the CoQ10. So there we go.
Thank you very much indeed.
Yeah, that's all. Pleasure.
Thank you, it's fantastic.